Hello. It is I, Andreen, your Jewish American priestess, and I'm here for another Hebrew reading, this time for this coming Shabbat weekend of this in-between time. We've just finished with finally all of the high holidays. We went into Tishrei with Rosh Hashanah, and then the 10 days of awe. And then we came through with our teshuvah through Yom Kippur, and then straight into Sukkot, all the different days of Sukkot, and finally Hoshana Rabbah, Shemini Atzeret, and Simchat Torah, all of the holidays, which literally take a month. So here we are in the first Shabbat after the high holidays, before we get into the next month of Mar Cheshvan. We're coming up to Parshat Breshit, where we've turned the Torah over at Simchat Torah this week, where we finished reading the Torah and we started again. And then this Shabbat we read from Parshat Breshit, in the beginning, again. But we're in this middle place right here between the end of the holidays and the beginning of Mar Cheshvan, where there's just this lull. And it's kind of wonderful. And it's fall here in the Pacific Northwest. I've chosen 3 different plants for us to choose from today. I'm going to try to scooch this in so we can see them a little better. I've got some interesting light happening today, so we'll see how that turns out. The first plant that I picked today is a snowberry. It's a native plant to the Pacific Northwest, and it makes these beautiful white berries. This one had pretty much finished being a berry. You can see some of them have these kind of empty berries almost on them. I'll zoom in a little bit so you can see it. But they're white and they're beautiful, and I didn't want to take any of the really lush ones in case the birds and the animals want to eat those, but here's a representation of what the snowberry looks like. They usually come in these clusters, sometimes clusters of up to 10 or 12 in a row. So the snowberry, for the coming season of snow, is one of our plants today. The second plant I picked from today is the rosehip, and we have several varieties of native roses here in the Pacific Northwest. I'm frankly not sure which one this is. This may be the swamp rose, but it's provided these beautiful red berries that are very high in nutrition for animals and humans. Humans being animals. So we have the rosehip. And then the third one I found on a plant is the beaked hazelnut. Again, native to the Pacific Northwest. This one has some hazelnuts in it. I'm going to open that to see what that looks like. That is our beaked hazelnut. And when we're finished with this reading, I will bring these back outside for the squirrels and other animals to enjoy. But they come in these pods of 3, 1, 2, 3, and they're quite gorgeous. When they're young, they're bright green, and then as they mature, they turn into this dark brown. And the animals are very much enjoying them at this time of year. So I'll bring this back out for them when we're done with our reading. So those are our 3 choices today: snowberry, rosehip, and beaked hazelnut. So take a moment to decide which of these 3 native plants to the Pacific Northwest speaks to you as a way to guide you into your Hebrew reading for today. And I'll put the timestamps below, and you can decide which one you'd like to listen to today. I'll see you there. Okay, we'll start with the Snowberry. And I'm going to set these others to the side here. Actually, I was going to put them all in the porcelain hands today, but I realized that the Snowberry is probably going to disappear if I do that. So I'm going to set this one right here on the purple cloth for today. So for those of you who chose the Snowberry as your plant guide for coming in today, we're going to do a Hebrew reading to discuss what's coming up for this upcoming Shabbat and how that is fitting for you in this empty time between the holidays. It's kind of a lull time. Mar Cheshvan, we'll talk about it when we get closer to it, but Mar Cheshvan is known as this month that has 0 holidays in it, and it's considered an empty time as well. So let's just start with a central Hebrewn and see what comes up for us today. I'm going to use the white clay today. And the first one that comes out is the letter Gimel. It's a little hard to see. Hopefully you can see it. It's the letter Gimel. I'll set that one right here. Scooch that up a little bit. And then the second one that comes out, let me think. Are we going to do the past or are we going to do the helper? Let's do a past. We have the Zayin. So then we'll go toward the helper rune next. This one is the Kaf. And then we'll go toward the future with the letter Ayin. And then we'll do one of a challenge that we're facing right now. And what do we get? The Samech. Alright, we'll look at each of these in turn now. So our central letter today is the letter Gimel. And Gimel is the letter that is said to be like a foot. It is about progress or moving forward. It is the third letter in the Hebrew alphabet, and it looks like a foot, a little bit like a foot walking, a little heel on it and a toe. What I'm seeing today is it looks a little bit like a nun with a vav on the side of it. So maybe also a little humility and connection going on there. And all of the letters have elements of the other letters in them. Certainly the Yud is in each of them. Gimel is about walking, movement. It's the first letter of the word camel, gamal. And so it's about walking progress forward. It has to do with it rules over the planet Jupiter in the sky. So, and Jupiter is called Tzedek in Hebrew, which is justice. So maybe moving forward toward justice, toward working for justice. It's interesting. I've chosen the justice card this month for my altar because it's got the scales on it, like the constellation Libra, which is where we are now. And also because, of course, in the month of Tishrei, we have Yom Kippur, where we are balanced to see whether we are going to be written in the Book of Life or not. So justice is coming up a lot this month. So maybe we're working toward justice. Maybe we're walking toward justice right now. And it has to do with the day Sunday in time. So maybe something's coming up for you on Sunday this weekend. It's one of the double letters, and it represents the foundation of peace and evil. In the book, the Sefer Yetzirah, the book of creation, each of the letters has a foundation of some sort. And the double letters, like Gimel, have a double foundation, and it is peace and evil in this case. And interestingly, we are talking about the tree. We're coming into Breshit, the first book of the Torah. And in Breshit, there's the discussion about the tree of good and evil, or shalom, and I guess ra, peace and or wholeness and brokenness. Maybe we should go with brokenness. And so Gimel represents that binary, that choice between doing what is good or healthy and doing what is unhealthy. We have a choice. The Torah says that the first humans were given the direction to not eat from that tree, but they chose to eat from that tree nonetheless. And so now, since we have the knowledge of what is good and what is not good or less healthy, broken, we can make those choices and are required to make those choices. So that's what's up right now, is this binary foundation of peace and evil. And again, now that we have the knowledge of good and evil, we are to choose to do what is right in the world. So that's what's up right now in this time for those of you who chose the Snowberry. The letter that is to the left of that is the letter that represents what came just slightly before, and it is the letter Zayin. Zayin is said to be a representation of a sword or a scepter. It is the seventh letter, so it represents all things seven, including a completion. So we just had a completion of something, for sure. We just had the completion of the previous year, the Shemitah year, Yom Kippur, Rosh Hashanah, and Sukkot. All of these things have come to an end in the recent past. And 7 being a completion number as the number of days of creation, which is included in those things that were completed, the numbers of creation. We just had this completion happen in our lives. 7 is a magic number. It has so many different affiliations in the Torah. The idea of the 7 days of creation, the 7 years of the Shemitah, the 7 Ushpizin, the patriarchs and matriarchs that we invited into our sukkah over the past week, the 7 days of Sukkot, etc. Zayin is said to rule over the constellation Gemini in the sky, and it pairs with the binary of smell. And so as we are in this time of the autumn where the smells change, certainly where we are, the different scent that comes after the hot summer and we move into the autumn and things are ripening and rotting as well, a sense of smell. And it says that Zayin is also affiliated with the tribe of Zebulun, which is the tribe that is affiliated with trade and business. So maybe something in trade and business has just come before now as well. And that idea of the sword and the scepter, some form of sovereignty. I have got my crown here on the altar to represent this month is the Gevira, the queen, in the idea of the Kohenet Netivot cycle, which is the different priestess paths. So the Gevira is paired with the month of Tishrei, which is now. So some kind of scepter, perhaps, has come just before now. Maybe just this week. Something about royalty and rule. And now we're in this time of Gimel, where we're moving forward with justice. And what's going to help us in this time period right now is the letter Chaf. And the letter Chaf is like a palm of a hand. It's said to be a palm of a hand being held out, either for giving or receiving. So it's about exchange. It's about, on some level, what we give and what we receive. It also is the first letter of the word koach, which means power, or potential power. and it has the binary of wealth and poverty. It's one of the double letters, so it has the binary of wealth and poverty. So what's going to help us right now is finding the appropriate ways to give and the appropriate ways to receive. If we are in need, we need to be able to ask for and receive help. And if we have help to give, if we have resources that we can give, then this is the time to give those resources as well. It rules over the sun in the sky, and it's above here, so it refers to source energy, power, the sun, and it is connected to the direction west, as in the sunset. It has this idea of power, and it could be power either for good or evil. So since we're dealing with the binary of good and evil, use your powers for good is, I guess, the message that I'm picking up here today. Is if you have the ability to do justice, what would help right now is to use your power for good rather than holding someone down or oppressing someone with your hand or foot. Use your power to lift people up. If you have privilege, if you have the ability to vote, I recommend registering to vote. I won't tell you how to vote, but I do recommend it. Little things matter. So, yeah, I think that's what's going to help us right now, that ability to give appropriately and receive appropriately as need be. And what I'm seeing right now for the future is the letter Ayin. And Ayin is the letter that is representative of an eye, but it's also the number 70 in Gematria, and 70 is 10 times 7. We've got the 7 here that just came in the past. In the future, we've got the 70, which is this ultimate manifestation of the 7. So it is a big completion. So something's coming up in the future that has to do with vision, and it has to do with sight, and it has to do with a large completion. Something else is going to come to an end in the near future, or sometime in the future. Ayin rules over the constellation Capricorn, which is affiliated with the month of Tevet, which comes close to the end of the secular year. So maybe that's about what's coming up in the future, is the end of the year. And it has to do with the foundation of laughter. So hopefully some joy and laughter coming in with this completion that's coming up in the future. There are many cycles of 70 in the Torah as well. But, I'm seeing it as both being able to see clearly and also being watched over and cared for by the divine, in terms of Ayin being an eye. And something coming up in the future that's a big completion, some big ending that is coming with joy, with laughter. So not something to fear, something to look forward to, perhaps a celebration of some sort. And that's what's coming up in the near future. And what's not maybe a challenge for us right now is the Samach. And Samach is it's a circle, so it's about circles and cycles. And this whole reading seems to be about circles and cycles, both endings and beginnings, and moving forward. It is the letter that begins the word sovev, which means to surround. So it's like being surrounded and protected a lot of the times. But Samach in ancient Paleo-Hebrew meant thorn. It was like if you surrounded your home or your field with a thorny hedge, it would protect you. So it has this edge to it. It has this pointedness and this sharpness to it. So there may be something that is spiky coming up. And it has to do with, in the Sefer Yetzirah, it has to do with the foundation of agitation. So we have this this idea of agitation and the symbol of the thorn. It doesn't look like a thorn anymore, but you can see a little vestigial thorn on the top there. And in the Paleo Hebrew, it looked very spiky. So it has to do with something agitation. And it could be positive agitation, but since it's on the lower line, I'm going to guess that it has to do with a negative agitation of some sort. That we have something coming up that's going to be agitating, and it is affiliated with Sagittarius in the constellations, as well as the month of Kislev, which comes after Mar Cheshvan. So it could be that in the month of Kislev there'll be something that's agitating, like that month that is, it's about when Hanukkah happens. It usually is around the solstice, the winter solstice. So perhaps there's something agitating coming up near the end of the year, but then it's followed by Ayin, which is the very end of the year. So so what's not going to be, or what's going to be a challenge for us right now, is this agitation, something that's agitating possibly about the cycles or seasons, something that is thorny coming up, something thorny or agitating that may be problematic. And if you find yourself agitated, if you find yourself feeling annoyed or agitated by maybe being surrounded too much by family, maybe being surrounded too much, being too wrapped into somebody else's cycles or transitions that maybe aren't yours to hold, that if that's the case, then you can move up toward your Gimel, move up here to moving forward, continuing to move forward, press forward toward justice for yourself and others, and give only what you are supposed to give and receive what you are supposed to receive. Don't put yourself into poverty by giving too much to others, and receive what you need to receive appropriately. Don't get wrapped up in other people's cycles and transitions, but move forward, press on, give what you should give, receive what you should receive, and don't use your power to oppress others. You know, as we've come out of this past time of a completion cycle, maybe the end of the holiday season, and we're moving into this time of justice and moving forward, use our powers for good, give what we should give, receive what we should receive, and if we find ourselves agitated, remember to just press on, and then we will find ourselves moving forward with appropriate vision, that we can see what's coming in the future, and we can come into this ultimate completion of the year, the secular year, with laughter, with joy. And that seems like what's happening for those of you who chose the Snowberry. That's what I'm getting right now with these letters of the Hebrunes for you today. So if you chose the Snowberry, and this, you know, it's funny because these seem to be about this winter time coming up, both Kislev and is it what's the month? Tevet? Is that what I said? As we come into this time of the winter where the snowberry blooms, this has been your reading for you today, and I hope that it's useful and resonates for you. And I hope you have a beautiful Shabbat, and I will see you next time. Okay, for those of you who chose these lovely rose hips today, chock full of nutrients and vitamins, fresh from the grove, I'm going to set these into the porcelain hands today so they can hold them while we do a reading. And I'm going to pull out several letters, just to start with their general central issue first off. Let's see what feels like it's coming up today. This one. Okay, well, we got the the Ein Sof, the blank. We'll start with that one, and then I'm going to go with what's come right before now. And we have the Zayin. Interesting. What is above? What is going to be useful for us right now in this time? We have Dalet. What is coming into the future? Got Lamed. And what is going to be our challenge today? We've got the letter Hey. Okay, so our central issue is the blank, which I love this rune. I've probably talked about it before, but the Ein Sof is that which is all things, right? All things and nothing. It's that primordial material out of which everything is created. That before there was anything, there was this nothingness, this everythingness, if you will, that existed before time and will continue to exist after time. It is the stuff that is divine, that is made up of the divine, that is divinity itself. It is said that when the divine decided to create, that they started by contracting down into one point, and then, because there was no other material out of which to create, they used their own self to create. So it is divinity itself. All things are made up of the same stuff. This and this and this and this. All these things are made up of the same stuff, which is that Ein Sof, that without end, that eternal stuffness that exists. And that's where we are right now. That's our central issue right now. Sitting in this space right now between the high holidays and the next thing, whatever it is, which we don't know yet what it's going to be. Being in the moment, being present right now with that which exists, and staying okay with that, whatever it is. And it's sometimes tricky to sit with the unknown. It's sometimes tricky to be here in this maybe post-holiday letdown. We have Halloween coming up. I guess that's a holiday of sorts, not in Jewish tradition necessarily, but we do have this kind of dearth of holidays right now, and just being with how things are is our central issue. And that which came right before is the letter Zayin. Zayin is said to be a sword or a scepter. It is the number 7, so it represents Shabbat. It represents completion, and it's interesting because this is the letter that came before in the first reading. It is completion of a thing. So we just completed so many things. We just completed the previous year with Rosh Hashanah. We completed Yom Kippur, the 10 days of awe. We completed our Sukkah, our Shemitah, and our entire Sukkot celebration. We finished reading the Torah, and now we're into the new cycle. So that is what's come right before, is this idea of the sword and the scepter. Zayin is, again, representative of the number 7 because it's the 7th letter of the Aleph-Bet, and 7 is this magical number that has all of these associations with the completion of creation, with the completion of the Shemitah. There are so many 7s. We had 7 Ushpizin that we invited into the Sukkah for ourselves this last 7 days of Sukkot. When a bride is getting married, they circle the groom 7 times. Similarly, we circle the space 7 times on the last day of Sukkot when we do Hoshana Rabbah. There were 7 circles around the city of Jericho before the shofar sounded and the walls fell. So there's all this magic associated with the number 7. So something that came right before has completed, and there's been some magic in that. Zion is also affiliated with the tribe of Zebulun, which is the tribe affiliated with trade and business and industry of some sort. So maybe there's something business-wise that just came before this as well. And now we're in this blank space. We've finished a thing, and now we're in the nothing zone. We're in the nowhere zone. And what's going to be useful for us in this time of emptiness and eternity is this Dalet. Dalet is the letter that represents a door or a gate, a threshold, if you will, so that we need to cross over, go through a threshold, through the doorway. A Dalet is often affiliated with the idea of humility or humbleness, being humble, nullifying the self, letting the ego rest. It's about a doorway, like the doorway to spirit, the doorway to the divine. It is the number 4 in the alphabet, so it is about the 4s, the 4 directions, the 4 seasons, the 4 forces in physics: gravity, electromagnetism, strong and weak nuclear forces, the 4 elements of earth, air, fire, and water, and the 4 letters in the name of the divine: Yud, He, Vav, He. And there are also said to be 4 types of Torah study. We have, it's called Pardes, the Peshat, which is the simple way, the Remez, which is that which is alluded to in Torah, the Drash, which is the allegorical, and the Sod, which is the mysterious or Kabbalistic way of looking at things. So there's all these different ways to enter in, gates to enter into time and space and knowledge and study. Dalet is said to rule over the planet Mars in the sky, and it is the foundation of wisdom and foolishness. And interestingly, I mean, we have the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, and I think wisdom and foolishness could fall under that. Like, the good and evil could be seen as what is wise to do and what is foolish to do. So we're at this decision point where we're in this blank time, having come through a completion, and we have to decide whether what we'll do is wise or foolish. And again, there's nothing wrong with having some foolery. There's nothing inherently bad about moving into foolishness for silly times. But ideally, we're being wise in our choices, in our decisions right now. So that's what's going to help us through this time of maybe the unknown, the unseen, is this blank space. And when we get through that time, we'll move into the time of Lamed, into the near future. To the right here we have Lamed, and it is the letter that reaches above the line. It's the tallest letter in the Hebrew alphabet, so it reaches up for connection with the divine. And it's the first letter in the word Lev, which means heart. So it's about our heart's highest aspirations, longing for elevation, longing to connect. It's also about teaching and learning, and exploration of the soul through prayer and meditation. It rules over the constellation Libra in the celestial bodies and the month of Tishrei, which is now. So we have another week of Tishrei. We don't turn over to Mar Cheshvan until next week. So here we are still in the month of Tishrei. It has to do with action in the foundations of the Sefer Yetzirah. Like I said, in each of the letters has affiliation in the Book of Creation with a foundation, and Lamed's foundation is action. So something after this time of blankness, maybe we're moving into a time of action, a time of learning and teaching and lifting ourselves up toward a connection with the divine. And that's what we have to look forward to, lifting our hearts up, lifting ourselves up with heart toward connection to the divine. That's what's coming in the near future. Maybe in this last week of Tishrei, since Lamed has to affiliate with Tishrei. And the thing that was going to be a challenge for us during this time of emptiness is the letter He. And the letter He is the fifth letter of the alphabet, and it is the first letter in the word Hineni, which is presence. Right now, a practice that I'm doing this week is I have a gong sound on my telephone that goes off periodically, and you may hear it actually while we're doing these readings. And my practice this week is to, each time I hear that sound, to pause for just a minute and say, Hineni, this is where I am right now. Here I am. And remember that I'm here and ideally working toward service to the divine. So perhaps this is the challenge, right? This is the work right now while we're in this blank period of time after just completing what we completed, to remain present. And it's challenging. Every time that sound goes off, I have to remember, oh right, here I am right now. This is what's happening. It also has to do with the four-letter name of the divine, because there are two He's in the name of the divine, the Yud He and the Vav He. So it's basically half of the divine name comes with presence, comes with being available, being here. And the Yud He Vav He is said to be a culmination of the verb to be. It combines the past, the present, and the future into one word that is unpronounceable. The idea of becoming. And so, as we are in this blank time, we get to work with being present, remaining present. And again, that is a challenge. That is absolutely a challenge for me and possibly you and probably everyone else. To remain present all the time with the knowledge that we are part of this infinite, that we are made up of this infinity, that we've come from it and that we will return to it. He is affiliated with the astrological sign of Aries in the sky, the constellation of for Aries, and therefore the month of Nisan, which comes in the springtime. But it is also affiliated with the foundation of sight. So maybe we're having trouble seeing right now. Maybe we're having trouble remaining present and seeing what needs to be seen. And the other thing that He is affiliated with is the liver in the body, the organ, the liver. And the liver, which in Hebrew is keved, the same root as the word kavod, which means glory and honor. It's the heaviest organ in the body, and so it has this gravitas to it, the same way glory and honor have. And so maybe we're having some trouble with that, just that weightiness, that heaviness that has come during this time of emptiness. But we don't have to be heavy. We can raise ourselves back up into the knowledge that all things are made up of the divinity, and that we have a doorway to walk through, that we have these gateways, that there is the potential for entering into the different directions, into the different elements, that if we move ourselves back up toward humility, and that we are, it is said that we are but dust and ashes, that we are nothing, and yet the universe was created for us. So we have to hold those two ideas at the same time. And having come through this time of completion, possibly with the end of the last year, the end of the Shemitah, the new year, the end of the reading of the Torah, the end of Sukkot, we're now in this blank space, this blank time. We're focusing on humility and also on the different ways, the different doorways through which we can enter into the new phase that we're in having just made this completion? What is the doorway that we have to enter? And through that, we'll come through this to this place of heart and elevation of the heart. And if we're having some challenges with remaining present, if we're having some challenges with our own acceptance of divinity and possibly the heaviness that it feels after a time of levity and joy that Sukkot is, again, maybe that post-holiday malaise, and we can raise ourselves back up to remaining humble and present, and just sitting in this empty space and listening, just listening for now. And that will bring us through with our elevated hearts into the near future. And for those of you who chose this lovely bundle of Rosehips, this has been your reading for today. Remember that all things are made up of that stuff, that you and me and the Rosehips too. And for those of you who chose the Rosehips, this has been your reading. I appreciate you for listening, and I hope to see you soon. For those of you who chose the Beaked Hazelnut fruit, again, I'm going to open that up so we can see it a little better. This is what it looks like, and I'm going to put this back out for the animals when we're done with the reading so they can enjoy this fruit from the Beaked Hazelnut plant. This will be your reading for this Shabbat in the last week of Tishrei after Sukkot. And I'm going to set these right here so they'll be nearby and we can look at them. And we'll pull out some Hebrunes today to see what's up for you. The first one is going to be our central issue, whatever it is. I'm going to shake them up and scramble them inside the bag, see what comes out. So our first Hebrune, that is our central issue, is the letter Kuf. Next, I'm going to pull out what came just before now. So we have an idea of where we're coming from. And that letter is the letter Tzadi. What's going to help us in this situation that we're in right now, we're going to get the letter Beit. I'm going to pull out what's coming next in the near future for you. And I have the letter, the Ein Sof. And then what may be a challenge for us at this time. Let's see. And I've got the letter Vav. Okay, great. So the first letter is the letter Kuf. Kuf is the first letter in the word Kadosh. So it has to do with holiness. It has to do with that which is designated for service to the divine. It's the last letter in the word Tzaddik. A tzaddik is a person who is righteous. And so it has to do with holiness is the translation that is often given for Kadosh or Kadusha. But it literally means that which is designated for service to the divine. So Kuf is the one letter that reaches below the line in Hebrew. And it said that it is like the righteous going down to find the sparks of divinity that have been scattered throughout the world. That's what a tzaddik does, is they do service that repairs the world, and some see that as study, and some see that as acts of tzedakah or justice. But it also looks like a resh and a zayin, which is, if you put those two letters together, it can spell zar, which means stranger, or Raz, which means secret. So it could have something, right now, it could have some inner meaning or inner purpose. It could also have to do with Ze'er, which is a crown. Something secret, something special that's being hidden, something strange maybe happening right now, or feeling separated in a good way, hopefully designated for divinity, so designated for holiness or for holy service in some way, that kadosh. And the tzaddik also, who again goes down into the world to look for those divine sparks, to do tikkun olam, the repair of the world. It's also representative of the number 100. So 100 is, it's a special number in that it is 1 times 10 times 10. And 1 is representative of the divine, the oneness of all things. So it's no surprise that Kuf has to do with holiness, since it is 1 times 10 times 10, this ultimate manifestation of oneness. 100 is also the age of Abraham when Yitzhak was born. So that idea that even in our elderness, we have the ability to create and bring goodness into the world. It rules over the constellation of Pisces in the sky, and it has to do with the foundation of sleep. So maybe right now is just a sleepy time when we've finished, all the holidays, and we're in this time of holiness and righteousness and some secret, special inner meaning or purpose that we're finding ourselves in. And what's come right before us is the Tzadi. Interestingly, that is the letter that comes right before Kuf in the alphabet. The Tzadi is the first letter of the word Tzaddik. So it's about that righteousness, or that righteous person. It is said to be a bent noon with a yud on its back. So like a holy or humble person that is traveling with the divine. And it's bent over because it is said that they are looking again for those sparks in the world, that what's come right before this is this idea of righteousness, that maybe when we were working through our stuff in the days of awe between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, we maybe did some tzedakah, gave some things to charity, or worked toward righteousness, that tzedek, all those words that begin with tzadi. And it is it's the thing that came right before. So maybe we've been working on our becoming tzaddik. Maybe we've been working on our tzedakah, or giving, working toward justice in some way. It's the representative of the number 90. So it is the age that Sarah was when Yitzhak was born again. So in our elder time, we can still have that creativity. It rules over the constellation Aquarius in the sky, and the foundation of thought. So maybe we've spent a lot of time in the recent past thinking about the things that we need to make atonement for, that we need to make amends for, and worked on our righteousness and worked toward justice recently. And that has brought us into this time of holiness, this time of the Kuf. And the thing that's going to help us right now as we sit in this time of Kuf, this time of holiness, is the letter Bet. And the letter Bet is representative of a house. So it is a place where we sit, where we dwell. It can be any kind of house or building. It could be a place of worship, or it could be a place of study, a tent or a tabernacle, or even a sukkah. But it is where we need to be right now to help us with this time of holiness, to stay in our home, in our bodies, maybe to really focus on where we are in our bodies. Our bodies are the home of our souls, and the universe is the home of the divine, or maybe the the divine is the home of the universe, and that's maybe the better way to look at it. The letter Bet rules over the planet Saturn in the sky and the time of Shabbat in the week. So it is representative of this time of rest, this time of the completion day of the creation, that we've come to a time of rest in Shabbat. And Shabbat is made up of two roots, shev and bait, which means to sit in the house. So maybe we are resting right now, and that's what's going to help us through this time of holiness, is resting our bodies, particularly for Shabbat, really observing our Shabbat this week. And that will help us right now as we're working on our dwelling, our being designated for the divine, and maybe designating other things for the divine in our world. Oops, sorry about that. And that will bring us through to the Ein Sof. That will bring us through to this time of dwelling in the space of emptiness. Now, right now we're in the space between the high holidays and the next thing, which is the month of Mar Cheshvan. And after Rosh Chodesh next week, in Mar Cheshvan, there are no holidays at all. So again, we're moving into a space of blankness. We're moving into a time of, maybe of rest as we transition from the summer into the winter. This time of, again, we just finished partying with all of our harvest in the Sukkot time, and we're moving into this place of blankness before our next holiday, which is a little ways away. It's and not Hanukkah is the next thing, and it's quite a ways from now. It's a whole month away. So that's what's coming up next, and we need to dwell in our holiness, or dwell in our designation for divinity, and prepare for this blank space coming up in the future. And what might be a challenge for us in this time is the letter Vav. And Vav is, it is a straight line with a slightly bowed head. It's supposed to be representative of a standing person, standing in humility. And it is about connection. It's about connection between humans and divinity. The first mention, or the first representation of the letter Vav in the Torah is in the phrase heaven and earth. So it does speak to that connection between the divine and the human. It is the number 6 in Gematria, which is the 6th letter of the Hebrew alphabet. And so it is represents that 6 days of creation. The letters in the word Breshit are 6. So we have this representation of being in the beginning. Breshit is the Torah portion we're reading this Shabbat. So what may be challenging right now is finding that connection. Finding a connection to maybe the divine in this time after the holidays. Maybe we're challenged with that. But also, interestingly, Vav is one of those letters that if you add it to a verb, it reverses its tense. So it makes past verbs future and future verbs past. So maybe it's about connection, a challenge with connecting the past to the future, maybe connecting the ancestors to our present. Maybe that's what's the challenge for us right now. And it is the central letter between the two Heys in the divine name, the Yud He Vav He. And we've got the idea of presence in those Heys. So connecting presence to presence. Vav is connected to the constellation Taurus in space, so something having to do with the Earth, perhaps, and the foundation of hearing. So maybe we're having some trouble hearing right now, listening to the voice of the divine as it comes through in our holiness. Maybe we're having some challenges with listening or connecting in that way. Vav is, it's like a spine or a taproot going into the earth. So maybe there's just some challenges connecting ourselves to the earth, or connecting our earthly selves to the lofty holiness that we've got coming up right now. We've got this holiness. We've just come out of this time of justice and righteousness that came through with Yom Kippur and the 10 days of awe, and maybe even Sukkot, the tzaddikim that come to us in the sukkah. And we're in this time of connection, which is to say holiness, just sitting in this space of holiness and designation for the divinity. And what's going to help us is staying in our homes, staying in our bodies, staying connected to caring for and resting our bodies after all this rigmarole that's come before. And it will bring us into this space of oneness. It feels like an emptiness sometimes, but it's, if one can dissolve oneself into the allness of things, there's actually quite a peaceful rest in that. And while we may be challenged with connection, while we may be challenged with rooting deep into the earth, we are encouraged to remember that we are designated for holiness, that we are the tzaddikim, that we are those righteous ones that are here finding the divine sparks in the world, repairing the earth. Right now here in Portland we have wildfires. There's lots of smoke in the Pacific Northwest, and we need to really focus on repairing the world. And we need to do that by resting up our own bodies and taking care of the earth, which is our home. And when we have a difficulty connecting with the esoteric idea of holiness, maybe we just need to ground back into the earth and focus on taking care of our planet and our bodies, as that is our greatest connection to divinity, is just focusing on the sensations in our own bodies, and maybe in meditation, and just dissolving ourselves, our egos, into the nothingness and the everythingness that is divinity. And so for those of you who chose the Beaked Hazelnut today as your way into this reading, this has been your reading. I'm going to go quickly bring those back out to the animals in the grove so they can enjoy those nuts. And I appreciate you coming and listening today to the reading, and I hope to see you again in the near future.